I think you'll definitely see that too, where people don't plan for retirement and then they get towards retirement and realise that having one property isn't a retirement plan.
It is good being a renter at the moment, actually.
There's probably never been a better time. Be very careful of the amount of emotion that New Zealand encourages us to put into property. Maybe constant rising house prices aren't amazing for an economy.
I got this thing down in Taupo, man. It gets like 20-something grand a year, and 50% of it is taken up by rates and insurance and shit. Like, what is the point in owning that?
Property in 2025, we're nearly at the midway point, and by now everyone said that it would be pumping again. I'm not entirely sure if it is, but Mikey might know a little bit more than I. Is it dead or alive? Let's get stuck in, mate.
Housing never dies, mate.
It can't.
Nah.
The economy's built on it.
It is. And it's been pretty interesting, eh? Like, we have a bit of a funny dynamic that I'm seeing that they sort of don't usually correlate this way. Like, we've got increasing loan approvals, as in more clients wanting to get approved, increasing loan volumes. When we're dealing with the banks, they're really slow, showing that they are under the pump with people wanting new mortgages. And then house prices are still, in a lot of places, declining, right? So normally, like, when people are coming in and getting loans, people are coming in and wanting approvals and stuff like that, normally that's buyers, and buyers come and buy up the stock. But I think the cost and damage over the last couple of years done is that there's so much stock that it's going to take a while for that to rebalance. I opened up... Is that a question?
No, not yet. We are live on Facebook for those tuning into the podcast. We've got about 600 people. Oh, no, 4. It is a public holiday.
I opened up the property section on interest.co.nz. Shout out to them. The headlines are like, say it all, eh? Residential auction activity eased off in the final week before the start of winter. Building consent numbers continue declining. Auckland new home builds continue declining. You know, this is rent on Trade Me property down 3.1% in April year on year. 6 straight quarters of downward pressure on rent. Like, Auckland market suffered autumn chill in April, Ryan say. So, like...
It's grim.
Well, I don't know. Like, headlines, these aren't going into the articles, but, I mean, I wouldn't say grim. I'd just say it's, like, relatively flat, you know, like down 1% or 2%, like, who cares? Up 1% or 2%, who cares? Like, we're in that range. There's all those sayings like... you know, it's a good time to buy and not a good time to sell and all this kind of stuff. But the reality is, I reckon some pretty clever people are coming in and, like, to us and getting approved and buying their house right now. Like, if we zoom out and think that you're going to buy a house and you're going to live in it for 15 years, even if properties go down another 5 or 10%, say, like in 15 years, we'll get through this period and look back and be like, that was the bottom. We always do that. But it is funny watching all of the commentary around. You sent me some last night. I think you posted it. Showing that their forecast didn't work at the start of the year.
Yeah.
That's my favourite.
We'll dig into those too.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I can't really complain. Like, our business is good.
So people are still borrowing and buying for properties.
Yeah, and there's like Reserve Bank data that shows that new mortgage lending is increasing every month. So yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's directly linked to our paychecks as mortgage advisors.
Well, I guess that, you know, for a long time, you know, property has been the number one asset class in the country, right? And we just get so used to it increasing and going up, and that's the narrative. And everyone knows somebody who made $1 million untaxed out of property, etc.
Yeah.
And then the banks come out every year and they're like, we're predicting 64% growth. But like, they do, man. Like ASB, I shouldn't name them because it might. I'm pretty sure it was ASB like 2 years ago. We're like, 6% next year and then 16% the year after that. Something like, where the does this come from? You know, and then it's like, I better go and check Westpac's one. But every day, just about, you can go on any major news or media outlet in New Zealand and there will be a story about property. And at the moment, it's like, is this the perfect time to buy? Our first home buyers, all this stuff. But we just keep pushing the noise with it. And I think it just it's just part of like who Kiwi people are. It's in their DNA. But I think we're in a time where, because it hasn't increased, and if you look at the median house price, we're still on par with around, I think, 2021. So it's sort of sideways growth at that median for the last 4 years and maybe even longer.
Yeah.
Now but then it's like, oh yeah, but what was it like pre the COVID and all this sort of stuff. But I think it's becoming probably frustrating for people that their choice of wealth building isn't returning to them what historically other people are seeing. And then if you've got people saying, oh, well, it might even take longer, that becomes frustrating. It starts to like raise questions, or people then become uncertain about their decisions, because as much as housing, the utility is sleep in it, shelter in it, shower in it, go back out and be a productive human in it, we know that's not really what property is. It's status, importance, closeness to work, and a store of wealth, protect me from inflation, and hopefully go up in value, and I can borrow against it, use as an ATM, and not have to pay any tax.
We know that, but a lot of people don't.
True, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those properties of it as an asset class are not going to go away, eh?
No.
Nah, we're just in a weird time with interest rates and economic activity and stuff like that. I think, again, like, affordability is interesting. In terms of people that I know around the country, and then even some of our mortgage advisors see volume coming in different areas, and like down south in Christchurch, for example, seem to be doing lots of lending down there. And I have this theory around the fact that, like, if you're a 30-year-old couple in Christchurch and you earn 70 or 80K each in the household, you can afford your first home. If you've been in KiwiSaver since you were 20 and you're 30 now, like, you can go and buy it. Like, there's nothing stopping you. You can go and get approved and go and spend 500-600 grand. But in Auckland, that same size house with proximity to the city centre or whatever that you're looking for, 1.5.
I think you need more.
You can't afford it if you're on that same income.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need either bank of mum and dad, bigger deposit. Maybe you needed to buy Bitcoin 10 years ago. Like, whatever it was, like, you needed something else to help you get in if you haven't had your income increase at the same rate. So there's a bit of that. But there's like, we're in the middle of like a
depression.
Well, kind of like a deleveraging event of the housing market, right? Like, we got too over our skis, and now it's like bleeding out. We had a bit of a, it was a little bit of an elevator down at the end of 22, start of 23, and now it just feels like we're on the stairs down. But I think I don't know, like, I made the mistake earlier this year of going to some open homes to look at a house that I thought I was going to buy. In fact, put that on the back burner. Place was loaded with people, eh?
Really? Yeah.
It's another thing I see is, like, in Auckland is like the division of like suburbs, and you go to a certain suburb that is like a wealthier type suburb, and that stuff seems to settle good, or at least it did for a while. I think we've probably been through a little bit of a dead cat bounce, to be honest, eh? This is just like me
speculating.
Yeah, speculating. I
yeah,
reckon we probably got
obviously
a pretty flat back end of the year, especially now that interest rates probably aren't going to move that much down anymore. That's it for a while.
Yeah.
And then we'll get another set of like grim economic data, and then the RBNZ will react again and then go down. That's my theory. I always get that wrong, by the way, but yeah, well, it's a weird time out there.
Well, I think a lot of people came into 2025 expecting, house prices to increase. The banks got it wrong in 2024. They were all wrong by a mile. 2025, they all re-predicted, and so far are re-estimating down. Treasury's forecast as part of the budget that was recently available for all of us to look at, I think was based on 6% growth in property. But I think with the flatlining of property, it's quite clear now that people are quite educated compared to maybe, say, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, where maybe like constant rising house prices aren't amazing for an economy.
Do you know what? I saw someone screenshot something the other day. Fuck, what's his name? What's our housing minister's name?
It'll be Chris Bishop,
That's
maybe?
it.
Yeah.
Chris Bishop. And it was like a One Roof or a CoreLogic article or something like that. And it said that house prices have fallen for the quarter of one. I can't remember what the data was, but he shared it on his social media and said, good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, he did early on come out and say that they want to see house prices. I don't think they use the words go down. I think they say that they want to see them more sustainable, because it's great language to use because no one really knows what that means. But
it's real political language.
I was driving the other day because I was staying a bit further out of Auckland, and I was driving in for meetings, and the traffic is just horrible, heading in. And you got 2 lanes.
Yeah.
But you got all this building going on beyond those 2 lanes. So it's like, okay, let's go up there. You should go live up there because we've got some affordable properties up there. Same down south in Auckland. Then you go east, west and whatnot. Maybe not so much east, but west. And then it's like, but then the infrastructure to get you back into the city to where your job is still basically cooked.
Yeah.
So don't complain about not having an affordable house, because we've got you one. You just have to drive an hour to it.
But we'll fix that. We'll toll the road.
That'll help.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
On a Friday, nobody seems to go into the city and go to work. It goes from traffic being at a standstill to they don't even have to have the traffic light things on to get people onto the motorway. It's crazy.
Do you stop for those?
Of course, man. What do you mean? This
Fuck,
is a live podcast. Right, hey, Mikey's just throwing himself under the bus there. But I was sitting in there thinking, it's kind of sad where we've blown up housing so much that we're like, if you do want an affordable property, just go and live an hour away. So you've got to drive 2 hours. Like, is that a good quality of life? But then instead of going, that's actually a byproduct of blowing up housing and maybe too much growth and infrastructure not keeping up with it, we just go, but it's worse in London. Oh, it's worse in Los Angeles or whatever. And so then we're like, because everything is like, we've got to protect the underlying reality of, okay, to keep getting people into properties, we've just got to push them further and further out. But then what's the decrease to the quality of their life to then sit in traffic for 2 hours and miss time with the kids or whatever? I don't know. We've covered all this shit before, right? But I just had that realization driving. Like, how many people actually want to live in these suburbs, if they're honest? Like, actually live in, this is where they want to build their life.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think there's going to be, like, over the next 20 years, I think relatively smart people will probably start leaving the cities and stuff, eh?
Man, I had this convo this week with Phil. Yeah, I was calling it like the regional renaissance.
Yeah.
Where you will go, do I want to travel 2 hours a day, or can I do whatever I can do from a region?
Yeah.
And have maybe a different life. Maybe you have to take a bit of an income haircut because you can't get access to the same opportunities. But yeah, often I think about, okay, where would I live? And does it have close access to an airport? Would I be frustrated by the travel and whatnot? And yeah, think about that too. And I think, you sort of see it with older people leaving Auckland to then cash out of that market and go and buy in a cheaper market. But I think you'll definitely see that too, where people don't plan for retirement and then they get towards retirement and realise that having one property isn't a retirement plan. It's only really a retirement plan if you can then make the property liquid, right, which you have to then sell and downsize. But a lot of data suggests that people don't downsize. They go from having a 3-bedroom shithole, excuse my language, to then going, well, I don't want to live like that anymore. We're going to downsize to a 2-bedroom brand newer.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have to pay. So it's very hard to, but anyway.
Yeah, downsizing is...
Off to the regions we go. But all the data, the population data suggests no. Everybody's going to keep graduating to the northern part of the North Island. So basically like...
Because we can, bro, because once you own the property, they just inflate away the debt for you.
Then you just
you go up, you could get a rental, man.
and then sell that.
Yeah.
But, okay, what if AI comes along? Because the thing is, right, let's say that property stays flat till 2028. So we got to get through 25, 26, 27, and then 28. By 2028, if I believe my DMs, then Elon's robots should all be here by then. And then Zuru's house building, if we couple those together, they build 200,000 houses. Labour's cheap because the robot's doing it, right? So if we build 200,000 houses, then what happens to the value of all of the other housing stock?
One of my goals is to help 100,000 Kiwis improve their financial literacy and in turn help create a better New Zealand. Generate has a very similar goal to educate and empower Kiwis to make smart KiwiSaver decisions so more of us can be better off at retirement. That's why I'm stoked to have them on board as sponsors. Together, we can reach more people and make this goal a reality. If you've never got KiwiSaver advice before, book a no obligation chat with a Generate advisor at generatekiwisaver.co.nz/change. They'll even put you in the draw to win 5k worth of vouchers just for having a chat, whether or not you decide to sign up. T's and C's on that webpage. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
There's some disruption coming out. You can like smell it in the room wherever you go. There's like financial disruption occurring with like, you can see it in the gold charts and Bitcoin charts and the bond markets. There is technological, like software, AI disruption coming, which is arguably hard to decide whether it's like good or bad sometimes. Like there's lots of things that are very helpful, but then when you start try and think about what's coming and you're like, oh shit, maybe it will take all the shit I'm good at. And then it's like, you're Elon being like, yeah, 4 or 5 years, like everyone will have, you know, a robot in their house doing all of the stuff for them. And it'll take quite a bit of the labor jobs too. And Amazon literally already has a factory with humanoid robots in it carrying parcels from like one conveyor belt to another. And then like one of my favorite things I've ever listened to this year was Nick Mowbray on the My First Million podcast in the States talking about that, I got so fired up when he was talking about his factory that's basically using all of this modern technology to press a button and build a house. Thought that was so cool. That is very disruptive.
Yeah, and because we're so out of the loop with all this stuff and probably not curious enough to go looking for it, like a lot of us, all we do is go looking for more data to tell me my house is going to be worth more, right? We don't go looking for reasons why it might not. But then when you listen
We're not incentivized to.
Yeah. But like all of a sudden, if someone comes over here, what New Zealand will do, if there are robots that can build houses and do it for a third of the cost, we'll be like, nah, better ban it. Yeah, we should put some regulation in place because we need to protect the
We are
the bubble.
trending, yeah.
But if you've got a housing minister coming out saying good, maybe not.
Maybe. I feel like we are trending away from socialism and more towards communism.
I don't even know what that means. Yeah.
Oh, it just means you're not allowed to do anything, man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Fully.
So will I be allowed my robot to build a house or not?
Don't know, maybe not. They
Yeah.
might stop it, yeah. They're
Yeah,
like, nah,
too
that'll be
dangerous.
too disruptive.
Might build a leaky one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we haven't done that before.
No. But I don't know, like, I'd love to know what people think about that. You know, if robots, you know, you would think that if we're going to direct automation and technology that's groundbreaking, and that if it's this close, that we're going to push it towards solving what New Zealand's biggest suggested issue is, which is housing, well, then surely we're going to use it to build more houses and infrastructure.
Yeah.
But then what happens to people's house prices?
Well, it doesn't matter. They'll just maintain the value of them with like inflation and stuff like that.
So just create more
Because
debt.
there's already, like these articles here say it, you know, Auckland new home builds continue declining. Building consent numbers continue declining, particularly for residential construction. Wasn't there a gigantic housing shortage like 2 years ago? Massive. Why is that happening? Fucking, like, honestly.
All right, let's take it. Oh, you go.
I mean, in markets, there's very rarely like there wasn't a shortage of housing. There was just an excess of dollars, chasing it. And yeah, maybe everyone got overexcited, and there's been a bit of overbuilding happening, and you know.
I heard an interesting story recently that I haven't shared that you might like. A Chinese lady put her property on the market for $900. The rent in the area was $1,200. People renting close by are like, whoa, what the these are kind of identical. Why is it $900? She's like, oh, I've inherited this. I just need to get it rented. I need to get back out of here.
Oof.
Yeah, bang, $300 decrease in if you can go and move into it. But obviously someone snapped it up. But yeah, just a random little outlier there.
It is good being a renter at the moment, actually.
Oh yeah, mate. Like there's probably never been a better time to push your landlord and stuff.
Yeah, and
be a
you
good tenant.
you probably haven't really had an increase properly for 3 years or so. So you've been living on the same, whereas like if you owned a home during that time, you had the value of your product that you bought go down and the cost of the repayment go up.
Yeah, and your income may have gone up, so then your rent is effectively...
Yeah, if you've managed it correctly, it's been quite a good time to do that.
Yeah.
I think its time will come again, but at the moment it's been good to go the other way.
Some One Roof data for a June report. New Zealand's average property value has climbed only 2.7% since the end of the slump in June 2023. Now it's June 2025, so 2.7%.
2 years.
In 2 years, okay?
So
And
negative real.
unpack that. What do you mean by negative real?
Or minus inflation over that 2 year period as well, which is probably...
Yeah, probably slightly higher or in line with that. Yeah, well, no, it would be way higher than that.
Yeah,
Wouldn't it? It's probably
so
double
we're
that.
talking about like 5 to 10% losses in real...
So you're saying, okay, so the property, if we go right...
I mean, we live in a nominal world though, right?
Yeah.
So like...
But what you're saying is then your costs are going up with everything, so then you're asking for more wages, so then realistically you're then earning more, and then your property is not really keeping up with inflation.
Yeah,
So then,
exactly. So
yeah.
it's not being an inflation hedge.
Yeah, so say you put your money into the S&P 500 in that time for those 2 years, your property has effectively become even cheaper as well.
Wow, that would be a big difference because a
that's
couple of
gone
those
up
years have been real good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not what everybody does. So, okay, but just some further context here. So below...
Priced in Bitcoin. Holy shit.
It's since the... So I'll start again. Value has climbed only 2.7% since the end of the slump in June 2023 and is 11.7% below its post-COVID high of 1.098 million recorded in... Isn't it crazy the average New Zealand house price is $1 million in 2022, February 2022. Estimated return to peak, June 2027. Do you know how much One Roofer probably hated releasing this article? It's June 2025. And they're saying, well, it's not going to get back to that peak until June 2027.
Wait.
That's New
how
Zealand.
far did it say it's 11% away?
Yeah,
Phenomenal.
11.7% below its post-COVID high. So then they're saying that it's going to then increase by...
Like 15.
Yeah, over the next 2 years, like a 7 compounded again
16.
maybe. Auckland's average property value dipped below its June 2023 trough of 1.278 million in September last year. Since then, it clawed its way back to 1.3 million, but has eased in recent weeks and is still 17.7% below its record high of 1.79 million recorded in January 2022. Estimated return to peak, December 2028.
Yeah, that's more realistic. I thought they said mid-27.
That's for the New Zealand average, but this is Auckland. So December 2028, they're saying they don't see property getting back to that peak until December 2028.
I was going to say, if you were like mid-2027 in terms of reaching the COVID peak again, that means we would need a couple of years of 7 in a row. That ain't happening.
Well, Christchurch's average value dropped to a post-peak low of 739,000 in May 2023. In the last 2 years since it has grown almost 8% to 798,000, minus 0.5% below its high of 802,000 recorded in June 2022. So Christchurch seems to be there or thereabouts. A June estimated return to peak July 2025.
Christchurch is interesting, because I am down there a fair bit, but I'm not there all the time. But what I feel like is it feels more, it feels healthier economically there than it does in Auckland. So you can see you feel that on the ground, what they're talking about in that data there in terms of the house prices. Like, it's been more robust. The people I know there in other businesses seem to be pretty solid. And then when you go down to like the Riverside area that's all been redeveloped and it's nice restaurants and bars and stuff like that, whenever I'm there, it always feels like buoyant and bubbly and nice, and people are in like a pretty good mood. You drive around and there is still money coming from the government tap, right? Like, any time since the earthquake, you haven't really been able to overcapitalize in Canterbury or Christchurch because they just like keep building more stuff. Like, the main one everyone knows is that big stadium. It's still going. And if you drive past it, it is a behemoth. It's a beast. There's a lot of people on site there and they're doing a lot of stuff. And it was just like what we talked about earlier that no one would have heard yet on the pod about, like the Hawke's Bay have the floods, and then people have to come in and fix all the stuff, and those tradies and construction workers and people selling the ranges to the construction workers and the lunch bars selling the pies to the boys and like all of this stuff, it just flows all down and it makes everything feel better, eh?
Well, Wellington, which has been hit tough, Wellington City's average property value hit a trough of $970,000 in June 2023 and then climbed briefly above $1 million before dropping again. It hit a new post-COVID low of $956,000 at the end of May and is 28.6% off its peak of $1.338 million recorded in March 2022. So Wellington's
bleeding.
That's a crash. Like that's
It's a crash, yeah.
what people would just call or term a crash, right? Estimated return to peak, July 2031.
Yeah.
So if you brought at the top of the market and you're listening to this, like firstly, I have some sympathy or empathy for you. We may have warned you to be very careful with the FOMO, and even the Reserve Bank, Sir Adrian Orr, the best engineer in the country, even warned people, don't go and do it. But here we are. But you're not going to get back to your peak till 2031. I think this could all be wrong, right? But I did see someone yesterday.
It will be wrong, 100%.
And we'll get to that in a second and tell us why. But I saw someone yesterday say, my house is $120,000 under what I purchased for it. I'm just waiting for it to go back there before I can carry on with like what they want to do in their life. Now that's tough, right? Because is it really? Or can you go and do whatever it is you want to do in your life? Like, are you waiting for a number on a screen, or are you actually stuck? Now, I think the tough thing, as we've spoken about on many podcasts, for people who are going to go backwards on a property, is you feel cheated because you're in a minority. You're in a small group of people. But, 120 grand probably is a life-changing or a tough amount of money to swallow. But if it's a 10 or a 20 or whatnot, are you going to let that get in the way of making a decision in your life? You bought your property for $860, you sell it for $840, but you don't like the suburb, you don't want to live there, you're unhappy, you're miserable, your boss is an arsehole to you. Really, like, you're going to wait to get $860 before being happy. Happiness and fulfillment, I think, should come over like anything. Be very careful of the amount of emotion that New Zealand encourages us to put into property, and also the bias of nobody loses money. People lose money on deals all the time, and do not let it get in the way of your happiness and moving on with your life if it's a manageable loss, would be my sage advice. Now, do you agree? And then secondly, why are these figures all wrong?
I kind of agree a little bit, but also...
Never sell your property?
Well, not that. I don't know. I've been in like my space long enough to see there are some people who treat the property game like a business, and the ones that work hard at it and get it right get rich. This is like any business. 1 or 2% of these people actually nail it compared to everyone who owns a home. There's a big cohort of people that have, 1, 2, 3 rental properties, maybe throughout the country or various locations. They, generally speaking, from what I've seen, don't exactly get rich, but they eventually, you can do the maths and show that you'll be comfortable with it. A few things are changing, like the actual cost, like the council rates, which we talked about. Man, we did pods in like 2021, 22 about what was going to happen to council rates, eh? And now I get messages being like, holy, just got my first bill at $6,000 now. Wild.
Even to get a return on a rental with no capital growth.
I got this thing down in Taupo, man, and it's like, it gets like 20-something grand a year, and 50% of it is taken up by rates and insurance and shit.
And
like, what is the point in owning that?
So you tie up all your capital, which for you is not a good allocation of capital, right? Yeah. For a lot of people, maybe a good allocation because...
But what happens is you go, it's got a 10% yield, but it's a gross yield or a 12% gross yield. Then after everything, it's like a 5 or a 6, which is like term deposit money last year.
Bro, you could clean some cars on the weekend and make $6,000, man. Come
Yeah,
on.
like I don't really care about 5%, you know, like
But people buy for the capital gain, right? Oh, yeah, but you're missing that it could go up in value and then you can get that and it's not taxed.
yeah, I guess so.
But then you have an opportunity cost of deploying capital. So you know I could deploy it somewhere else. Like other people may not have that, right? And that's where this then becomes confusing. But you've got to know yourself. You've got to know.
It's for yourself, yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think that I personally, for me, not for anyone else, I've figured out that diversification for me is a fucking scam. Like it doesn't work for me. But I do think that for me, I want to make that very clear. I suit learning very deeply about something and then deciding whether I just go all in. Because that's how I just enjoy to operate. I would rather take the roller coaster on.
On that, a lot of Kiwi people are the exact same. And they do not diversify and they go all in on Kiwi property. Either owner occupied or then like, oh, I'm going to diversify. I'm going to go and buy a rental property. It's the same asset class.
Yeah.
But so as much as we have to be like, oh, be careful telling people not to diversify, most Kiwis, if you ask them, okay, show me a breakdown of your net worth, they're like, I got $500 in shares, but $1 million worth of property. Like, well diversified. But anyway.
Yeah, I think, you not diversifying in terms of being all in on property is okay, but then you need to have very honest conversations with yourself about your own personal LVR ratios and things. And if you're going to be that person, just like how I am with the stuff that I like to save in, you have to make sure that you do have like downside risk protection, as in if you do need to fire sell something because you overdid it, what does that scenario look like, and think about it. We're kind of past that point now though, eh? Like, I don't think property can probably go down another 20% from here. I mean, never say never.
AI and robots, mate.
Just in the immediate, like over the next 12 months. I mean, also AI and robots are just going to, like, they're just going to print to cover it up. Like, the tech is so deflationary because a lot of things, the cost of things will go to zero, which is incredible. I don't even know if, I mean, this is, okay, we're going to diverge off here, but like I've noticed that over the last 12 months, I think I might have said this to you, but other people I've said, 12 months ago, I'd use AI for 5% of my working day and it was a novelty. Now I think it's about 35 to 40% and I can't operate without it.
Of your working day?
Yeah. Like I came in here at 6 a.m. this morning and the first thing I did was get on there and ask some questions that I thought about last night before I went to bed.
Yeah.
It's like first thing I do is like start talking to it.
Yeah, I don't have to do that anymore because I got the chip implanted.
Nice.
So
you and Elon.
It just gives me a dump in the morning. Yeah. So this morning I was going through how many goals Alan Shearer got for Newcastle United and all these random facts I was thinking about. Yeah. And transcribe my dreams as well. And I'd ask it to delete the ones that are negative and then I only stick to the positive ones.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Very unwell. Sorry. Okay, so you use it for 35% of your day.
Yeah.
And it's not a novelty, it's basically a tool and you rely on it.
I think it's going to go to, for some jobs and some people, it's going to go to 100% and you lose your job. And that's scary, right? And then other people will own, license, use and do well out of it, and it will increase the value that they can provide to other people. There is definitely a part of me that thinks that it's a little bit scary that if heaps of people lose their job, because how will the debt be paid and all that stuff.
But also work is purpose for a lot of people, and there's, like we don't like to talk about that, but a lot of people, once you learn, like once people earn a lot of money and they're quite comfortable, they work on things that they like doing. Yeah. And they don't want to sit in a lazy boy and be like, oh yeah, great, I'm just going to wait till I get depression and die. Yeah. They're like, I need to do stuff. I need to work on things. Yeah.
And it begs like a bigger question. And when you look back through history, there was a time when like 80% of the world's working population were farmers because, we needed food and we invented farming so we could mass produce and we'd all get out there with our pickaxes and cut the grain and kill the cows and milk them and whatever. And then they said when the tractor was invented, 80% of that 80% is going to lose their job because the tractor means one man can do 1,000 men's job a day. And we just created more shit.
Yeah.
People just you lose your job and then you're like, well, I've got to figure out something, start talking. Humans are amazingly adaptable, eh?
We're still here, man, in 2025.
The other thing this pod has taken such a fucking turn. But the other thing that I find interesting, which I think I see, but a lot of other people maybe don't, or some people do, is that, you said earlier, not on this pod, but when we were talking before, you're getting lots of comments on YouTube and stuff about people saying the debt's becoming a problem for the US government and Japan's, bonds are blowing up, and you can see that there's maybe not the correct understanding, but a lot of people are saying they're finding this issue. And it's true, it is an issue. There's lots of there's countries that have had hyperinflation over the last 5 years and blown up their currencies and stuff like that. But what's also very true is that in, 1850, so a couple hundred years ago, we didn't have a New Zealand dollar. That US dollar, these things are all relatively new, eh? We used to have gold and then we put paper on top of gold because it was easier to do. And then throughout history, in various times, we've used salt. We've used tobacco. Shells, yeah. Seashells were a big one. Certain types of stone that were hard to reproduce. And there's all of the stuff throughout monetary history that shows humans have actually kind of been in search of finding the perfect money for a long time. And we've never really got it. Gold was actually good. And then even the layers on top of gold in terms of running ledgers and using paper were good until the central planner who had too much power decided to send out 2 pieces of paper because no one would know. That was when it turned into a fuck up. But I think there's going to be over the next 20 years a bit of restructuring and shit in that regard, eh? And people will start to use different forms of money. One of the reasons why property does good in New Zealand is because subconsciously we all know that if we just take our 100 grand that we have as a deposit and put it under our mattress for 65, I'm not going to buy shit at 65 if I'm 30. You kind of know that. You can't explain why, but we know because when we were a kid, the 5-cent bag of lollies in the store, if you go in there now, is $10 or whatever the number is, all of these things remind you. So we kind of use property as a form of money. It's not liquid but the banks give it a certain amount of liquidity. If you need to sell your house within the next 2 weeks, you will have a very hard time, but you can probably go borrow against it in the next 2 weeks. So there's a business there, right? Because you're basically providing that you're the liquidity provider. We are going.
Yeah, mate. Yeah.
Am I allowed to do this?
Yeah, of course. Help yourself. I thought this would be a 25-minute pod. And, I was listening to a book when I was over in Fiji, and I think it's called Why We're All Getting Broker or something like that. It can't be called that. That doesn't sound right. I'll find the exact title. But I think, a lot of people never even learn in their life that money and debt, it's like an IOU, right? So
every single dollar is an IOU.
Yeah, one of the chapters is basically about where is this money coming from and helping people understand a loan, and it steps through the debits and the credits from an accounting system and whatnot. And it's it'd probably be over the head of most people because you kind of just think, whoa, I've never thought about that. You're how come the banks are allowed to create more IOUs and what happens? But maybe I can't, or maybe I can. But then where's the regulation around it and stuff? And it's an eye-opening chapter would be for a lot of people who'd be like, oh wow, I'd never really thought about that. But the level of debt in the world is crazy.
There's I think there's different stages to learning about it too. There's even when you do learned that loans kind of get created out of thin air. Like sometimes you stop and you're like, wow, that's interesting. And then you're like, it's a game you got to play. And like to a certain extent it is, but you don't go further. Like I'd probably say the amount of like research I did was unnecessary for me, for most people, but it's kind of helpful in how I view things now.
A good way to understand it is that, think about businesses who are in business, right? So they're transacting and they're collecting GST, and they've got PAYE that they've got to pay to the IRD. And so they pay the wages and they pay the net wages, but not the gross amount. They collect the GST, and then eventually they get behind on the GST or the PAYE. Now they're in debt to the IRD. So there was an IOU or a promise there of like, oh, you're supposed to pay that. The rules are that you pay us that. Now you're in debt to us. You owe us money. And then it spirals out of control and eventually a business goes into liquidation. The IRD never get that money back.
Yeah.
Now, like that's debt created via that person not paying back where it was supposed to go to. And yeah, it might end up into the economy in some way, shape or form, but it's sort of circumvented or not gone through the channel that it was expected to go through.
Yeah, there's like money creation and money destruction every second of every day in a fiat monetary system. But there's always a little bit more creation than destruction. It always outpaces it because if it goes the other way, the price of because the price of housing and everything is, I always like to say to people this, if you couldn't get a mortgage, if a mortgage didn't exist in New Zealand, what do you reckon houses would be worth?
Yeah.
And when you have like that sort of like light bulb moment, it's like, oh yeah, it is because it is. It's propped up on debt, and that's fine. It is what it is. Everything is propped up on debt, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Vehicles.
Yeah. And like even companies, like a lot of companies in the share market have big corporate bonds and like they owe a lot of money. And I think I saw something about Apple, how they've got like 2 billion in cash and like 1 billion of debt. Like they don't even use their cash. They just have like I'm like, Tim Cook, do you want an offset loan, brother? But yeah, the whole thing is like that. And then if you take it away, it'd be the biggest rug pull of all time and they can't do it. It would be cataclysmic.
So they can't rug pull every Kiwi that's put all their money into property with robots and AI.
Well,
is that where we're getting back to?
I think what's going to happen is this stuff's so deflationary and so helpful that it will make things a lot cheaper, but they'll just paper over the crack, right? Like, if it's like, if the value of housing falls from $1 million to 500,000 because of all of these things, they will make interest rates zero so that you go and buy them up, take out the debt and bid up more of the existing stuff.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
Eventually, like mathematically, that doesn't work one day. So we'll go back to seashells.
Right. LVRs and DTIs, you big beach-loving bastard. I need to get you off the seashells. What about, let's go there first and then I'll ask you something else. But are you noticing that people can't get access to as much debt now because of these changes that, were quite big when they first came out, and we've touched on them previously, but, loan to value and debt to income and shit like that, has it had much of an impact, or could it stop us having another big bubble?
I think that's the hope of what it's there for. I mean, there's lots of people that understand a lot of those types of little things like DTIs and what economic effect it will have on it a bit better than me. But one of the arguments that I've seen around is that it's like, once again, it's like hurting the little guy, because like the people that have 5 properties and they have built up equity over time, maybe they have no mortgage or whatever, DTI won't affect them. They got income from rent, they got their job, like whatever, they can just go buy another house and borrow and leverage against the equity. Whereas like the little guy who's trying to get into his first home and just got engaged or married or whatever, and they want to start a family, and then the DTI kicks in and it's like, well, I know I can afford the repayment on this much, but the bank will only give me this much. It's not the bank's fault. That's the Reserve Bank ruling. And I think it is to try and, the idea is that we can have lower interest rates eventually and it will stop like the big wave, but I don't think it will.
We'll drop interest rates, but then basically the rule will be like, you can't actually borrow beyond that because you don't have...
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And we've had interest rates go from mid sevens in terms of like a range across the curve, like 1 year to 5 year. We've seen them in the mid sevens. Now we're into like the high fours. So they've fallen a lot. Still, very rarely have we had an application like hit the DTI.
Jeremy says that BlackRock will buy up all the property.
Yeah, baby.
Okay, the other thing, are you seeing any like stress from mortgage holders? Because I remember around a year ago, like it was quite common to see stories of people being like, I'm fully leveraged and I can't repay this. Like, what do I do? Do I sell my rental? Can't I move? Has a lot of that stuff died down?
I think so. We see a little bit of it, but it definitely feels like the peak of that shit is behind us. It's more it's more now. It's just like there's a bit of relief in terms of existing mortgage holders with interest rates coming down and they're all coming off and getting these lower rates. And then it's more like, well, I guess the people that I know and the clients that I sort of like talk to are pretty cool. But I guess the thing is they're just like, they want to see, it'd be cool if the economy went good again, eh?
Yeah.
People are just like itching to sort of hope it gets better, but it sort of hasn't.
Jeremy also says, West Coast property market is going solid. The new age gold rush is back with gold prices the way they are. And I think it's a good reminder that different pockets of the country will be doing differently based on what's happening in those local and regional economies, right?
Historically, we've had some pretty big gold finds here, eh?
Well, I think people are having a good crack at that at the moment. Someone says, family of 4 young kids building 2 businesses without going into debt currently, both service-based, 1 part-time income and 1 full-time, 75 to 80 though, 1,000 combined.
Sounds like a loan application.
100,000 in KiwiSaver. Is it worth pushing to buy property or sitting on it for now? I'm not getting involved in that, but as I always say, like, you got to figure out what you want from life. Like, I don't know, but it's dangerous going to social media telling people about your situation, being like, you know, like, what should we do? What do you want to do? And then have a chat to somebody to figure out what options you actually have.
Yeah. It's created because we don't know what to do with our money, eh?
Yeah.
So we just think, oh, everyone else did property. Like, I'll ask if that's a good idea. But you shouldn't do that. Yeah.
You should. Well, you want to think about what you want in your life. It'd be like,
why did you create a business?
Well, why don't I have 5 rentals? Because I could get them tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I don't. I've got to figure that out.
When you do, though, bro, you come talk to me.
Okay. I want to take you to this. So, KiwiSaver changes 3% to 4%. So now the employee and the employer are going to put in 8. Now, there is an option to opt out. Maybe you can't afford it and you apply each year. But structurally, what's going to happen is that we're going to be contributing 8%, not 6%. Now, and we're saying to 16-year-olds, okay, we can get going at 16, not just 18. So let's take 2 16-year-olds. So one, they get the knowledge that, you don't want to do that. That's a waste. Just do your own thing. And they do their own thing or don't contribute to KiwiSaver, and maybe they piss up in their 20s, or maybe they put money aside as well and they are quite good with their money. But then another 16-year-old just goes, okay, my uncle told me that that's a good idea. So they put 4% of their income in, their employer matches 4% as well, and they end up with 8% of their income right through to 2 decades later at 36, where they then go, shit, I'm going to use this to buy my first property. Who's going to have more money to buy a property? And who's going to outbid the other person A?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be...
It's quite a large amount to go from 6 to 8. It's basically a 33% increase in what people are going to be saving.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're going to see people with bigger deposits for houses. Now, they're either going to outbid people who, don't do that and contribute, and partly I think we're going to see people like house prices pushed up via people then having more to spend at that deposit amount, because once they have that deposit, what can they do? Borrow even more.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if that part... Your borrowing power is more linked to, there is some part, but it's more linked to what your income is, and then what interest rates are. That's like where borrowing power comes from. I don't know. We did watch first home buyers grants and stuff get increased from 2019 through 2020, and then interest rates at the same time, and that was like poof. Like $600,000 townhouses became $850 real quick, and that stuff's been taken away. Now there's KiwiSaver going the other way. I don't know. It's a big money loop, eh? Like, I just think that another important part about housing is that, you know, there's like property clocks and 10-year what is it? 10-year cycles of doubling and all of this kind of thing. When you actually go look at proper charts of like house prices, it's like 6 years of nothing, 7th year bump up, 8th year boom, 9th year down a little bit, and then it's like, oh, you've done your 10 years, and the next 10 years, in the middle, it's like up and then flat and then up and then down a little bit, like. So probably more of the same. I mean, I don't know. I just think that if you go back to zero interest rates at some point, what are people going to do?
Pump the Ponzi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Simo says, Simon, I feel advised and told off at the same time. But Gareth says, ask Chezza. So I think, like, it's a good idea, though. With big questions like that, sometimes now I'm going to Chezza.
Oh, my God. The amount of times, like, if you are not, you know, that Michael Saylor thing, he's like, I tell my executive team of strategy, MicroStrategy, if they've got a legal question, an accounting question, if they've got anything, go and ask the AI first.
Yeah.
Before you go and get a lawyer and pay someone for something really important, go and do that first. Maybe it will require that after. You have to live your life like this now.
Mm.
If you've got something that you're trying to work out like this, like, is property going to be a good investment? Go to the AI, put it in deep think or deep search or whatever, and then start talking to it. Sit down for an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
And like plug in and be like, what if this happens though?
Yeah. What can't I see? What am I missing?
What if the government changes and they don't like this rule? What if
we move to Germany?
Yeah, what if the LVR rules get removed? What if interest rates go to 10%? What if they go to 0? Like,
am I oversimplifying this? Am I overcomplicating it?
And you'll just work out the answer and then you can decide whether you want to get into it or not. I don't think it should be your decision maker.
No.
I like the idea of keeping my own creativity, thank you very much.
Same.
I actually don't like it for writing newsletters and shit, which is funny because at the start, that was kind of what I thought it would be real helpful for.
Yeah.
I can tell when people email me and they've used it, and I instantly don't take the email seriously, eh?
I said that this was going to be a big risk with it. Yeah.
And I was thinking, fuck. So when I do my newsletter now, I don't use it at all.
Yeah.
And
I think it's good for examples and like help me understand. Like sometimes I can't finish this. This is what I'm trying to get out. What is this bit? And it's like, oh yeah, like finish it with this. I'm like, oh genius. Or then I'm like, nah, I'll say it like this. And so yeah, I think like as an example, the other day I was asking it, you know, thinking about my situation, and it was basically like, well, knowing what it knows about me, I gave it my net worth to review, my balance sheet, the growth of that. It knows a lot about me. And it's like, well, what investing are you doing into SMEs where you can be the advisor and take a stake in their business? When are you going to get going on that? Wouldn't that aligns with your strengths, your values, your all this different shit? I'm like, wow, okay. I know that's, I've thought about that before. It's not like, oh, how have I never thought about this? But I'm like, it's just the way that it...
Just take the loss on Heartland, bro, and just reinvest it.
Maybe I'll end up on the board of that and help turn it around. Yeah. So, you know, like I'm not saying delegate all your decision making to it and then you become stupid. And it's, you know, people are afraid of that too. And it's like, people can't think for themselves already.
I think the way I like to treat AI, and I think a kind of a good framework to think about it is when you go and use it and talk to it and ask it for help and stuff, you're the boss still.
Yeah.
So you're, and you don't, and it's not like a human where you have to have like empathy and stuff. You can actually be a bit of a horrible boss to it and be like, go work this out for me. Instead of being like, hey, can we come and have a chat and like sit down and talk about this? It's like, nah, go and do this. I'm trying to understand this, go and work it out for me. And like, treat it like you own it kind of. And that's a good way to, because if you let it own you, it'll take your job.
Well, I've been using it to test my own thinking to say, well, what am I missing here? Or how would, you know, what's the opposing view to this? Or how does, like there's been a couple of times people have left a comment as well, and I'm like, I just don't know what they mean. Like, how can that be the takeaway from this piece of content that I've made? And it will show me, like, oh, maybe they're thinking about this or from this angle, or, Or even unpack, like, they've completely missed what you were talking about. Like, I'll give it the transcript of my video and say, what are they talking about? Like, how is this and it's fascinating to see, like, I can't process that because I don't know, but it doesn't know them specifically, but it's like, here's some things that they might be thinking about to then help guide me of like, oh, okay, that's what they might be going through, or that's where they're coming from to generate that as a thought experiment. But
the cool things that you can do with your own, like you said, give it your net worth, and like you can go and talk to it about your goals, what you want to achieve, what places you would like to work in, or what industries or whatever. And it can give you some really cool help and direction, eh?
Definitely.
So like the ultimate tool is, hey, I've just started, we've got 2 businesses in the household, 1 part-time, 1 full-time. Should I or should I not buy a house? Probably not a good idea to ask that to me because I don't know you. I don't know what you want. But go to AI and it will do like my mortgage advice job almost for you and be like, well, what do you want to get out of it? Where would you like to be over what time frame? Do you want to have a house one day? Do you want a family? Do you have kids, or do you want to have kids? Like, and it will start going through all the stuff for you.
Well, the good thing, like, let's take Simon's example. You know, there could be a missing data point here that's like, we're about to have another baby next month. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Advice completely wrong. And I think what people need to remember too is a lot of advice you go and get has an incentive which is attached to the advisor getting paid.
Like my job.
Yeah. So if you were a desperate mortgage advisor, you could be like, nah, you can afford it. Yeah, like we can tweak this a little bit to get you the debt. Yeah. And I'm sure some of this shit goes on. You definitely need this insurance, or whatever. Or even like, oh yeah, that's a great KiwiSaver provider or whatever. Then you find out, oh yeah, because they pay double the commission to the advisors that suggest to go and use them. But you don't know that until maybe you have that data. Yeah. But you can then use it to get unbiased advice, or before you go and speak to somebody and like get yourself ready for a meeting or a conversation.
Yeah.
We should save this for an AI podcast at some stage.
Yeah, to be fair, this is turned from housing to AI.
Final thing, rent versus wages. I know you're big on this. You started by talking about how rents are flat, right? And that worries you because you can explain.
Well, pretty much if you chart out like the however long, whatever rents are kind of directly correlated to what wages are. So average rent equals average wage in the area or whatever. So what that means is landlords will charge what tenants can afford to the upper limit of it. Sorry if you don't like that. It's just the way it is.
A lot of housing is subsidised in New Zealand too. So the landlords are getting an indirect, probably tangent for another day, but propping up rents.
And because there's been 5 or 6 consecutive quarters of flat or rent decline, that tells me that we're about to get some data that says wages are declining, which I'm almost certain real wages after adjustment for inflation have declined over the last couple of quarters because it's not good out there. Like the weekly jobs data and stuff like that is not good. Unemployment did have like a little pause there, but then the RBNZ's monetary policy statement the other day said they do still forecast it to go increase, even though it stopped at 5.1 twice in a row, I think.
Yeah, Treasury's budget forecast was about 5.4.
Back in like 2022, I'm like, it's going to 7.5.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those numbers are hard.
Those people moved to Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Those numbers are hard because of those variables, right? Like, I don't know how it gets counted either. Like, does people on the job seeker mean that they're unemployed? Or
yeah, stuff's so hard to figure out.
Hard.
All government shit is hard to understand. Like,
that's because they're fucking losers.
We need to stop this pod. And these cannot be edited. We're live on Facebook.
It was a joke. They're nice people.
But, you've got this, like, over-legal or whatever to review the net debt versus gross debt versus debt compared to this versus debt to GDP versus strip this in and put this asset in now that's different. And you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like, no wonder. Like, even if accountants can't read a budget from the government and then explain it, how the hell is an everyday person supposed to flick on
Yeah.
media or something, or talk to their family and have someone say like, oh yeah, the National are going into more debt than Labour. Like, oh shit, okay, I didn't know that. Like, then someone's like, no, they're not. That's net debt. Oh, it's gross debt. Oh, it's debt before Nicola borrowed $32 billion of Kiwis. You're like, oh, they're stealing our KiwiSavers. Next thing you're just like, oh, wow. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, I reckon a good one to think just as an individual when use AI, be smart with it. But as an individual, when you're making decisions like, should I buy a house? And I do this like annually. Is my life how I would like it? Is it better than last year this time?
Nice.
And then if you get into, I've had sometimes when it hasn't been, and then you're forced to go and make changes to ensure that you don't stay there, basically. And then it's again, next year I'll be like, is my life better this year than last year? And if you do that every year, you'll be sweet.
There's also a way better way. So what you can do is you can say, like, is my life better than last year? And if it's not, well, then you can blame it on the Reserve Bank or the government, and then that's mean you don't have to do anything. And then if you don't want it to get better, you then don't take any action or try to find any ways to make it better. And
to be fair, if we didn't have the Reserve Bank and the government, sometimes I think about how much I would accelerate.
Hey, the graph. Have you got the graph? Are we allowed to look at the graph? We'll talk about the graph. What is the graph? You sent me
it's
the
just
graph.
new mortgage lending.
Okay, what does it tell us?
Just month over month, just increasing.
It's increasing from a bottom of what sort of period is that? Because it probably ties into the bottom of house prices before they, when they troughed in that.
It was, okay.
Mikey's pulling up his graph here. You sent it to me on Messenger. So
Yeah, first home buyers, according to the Reserve Bank data, but this is billion. January 2025, about $1 billion. February, 1.1 billion. March, 1.6 billion. April, 1.5 billion. So there's like these new owner occupiers. January, 2.8. February, 3.4. March, 4.9. Like these increases in total lending that's getting drawn down is month over month increasing extra every month.
But it's way behind the peaks, right?
It almost looks like it's not even halfway to the peak.
Yeah.
There was the Q1 of, there was this funny headline that said Q1 of 2025 is the biggest quarter of new mortgage lending total drawn down since Q1 2021. But then you go look at the number and it's still like a far second.
Yeah,
that was such a big one that, yeah.
I think it's going to be hard for people to understand that what happened in that bubble isn't really reality, right? So it's almost like you have to strip that away and be like, okay, what did it look like outside of that? Because as you said, markets it might just be like, bang, a massive jump and then a massive drop and whatnot. And you pull out all those outliers.
It does make it hard to be an investor in housing or even shares and stuff like that, because like there's two theories. You like dollar cost average, or you pick a company and you just keep buying it when you can because you like the company or whatever, or keep paying down the mortgage and keep paying down the debt, blah, blah, blah. Then the value will come back one day because you know they're going to turbo print. Or you just like stack cash and then wait for the dip because you know that they will turn it back on and send it back up.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like, there's two theories.
Well, I deployed some cash into the old S&P 500 when post the tariffs and whatnot, right? And sort of did it as a bit of content so that we could follow along. And I explained it was me deploying, sending the troops into battle.
Yeah.
And I'll just dig those troops out so we can have a look at what they are. But I think on that, subconsciously, I still kind of think, I'm like, man, is the S&P 500 overvalued? I'm like, maybe. Seems pretty frothy.
There's companies on there that are like 40, 50, 100 times earnings and like stupid PE ratios and stuff like that. But it's also stupid to have a financial system of like $900 trillion all filled up by debt and credit and stuff, like.
You'll be proud of me, mate, for one time.
Nice, you actually got it right. That's experience though, because you've seen it now.
Experience, mate. I've got 20 of the other.
I know that's the experience that you're like, nah, just send them in because you know.
Yeah, that's it. I'm like, okay.
Back in your A2 days, you were selling at that point.
I'll show you my favorite, my Smart US Large. I'll show you this, the dollar cost averaging. So this is just what's happened to those large businesses over a year, right? I'll show you the 5 year. I'm like dollar cost averaging through a slight increase and then basically a gradual decline down from a unit price of $9 to $6.63. And then I'm like, right, I'm out all of it. Sell the whole lot out. It's the final transaction, and now the unit price is up to 14 and now back up to about 12.9. So
good.
So that money would be worth double if I hadn't sold. But anyway, I mean, it's always easy with all of this stuff. But again, it's like, is my life any better? Did that change my life? Like, whatever. We've got to, I think trying to time the market and do all these things perfect and whatnot, you got to think, why are the media pumping it at you? Why are Trade Me sending out data around like all of this stuff? It's all designed for attention, awareness, speeding up decision making and stuff, because probably someone's making $1 at the back end of it. Who's sponsoring these news things? You've got to try and get some wider information.
It's the same with any marketing, eh?
Yep. 100%.
Like, it doesn't matter if it's housing or if it's like Afterpay or if it's, supermarkets or if it's, clothing companies. Like, they are all clever at coming for your dollar, eh?
Yeah, definitely.
And, I think something that, when you become a financial advisor, like what I did, and you go and get the qualification, you learn a lot about the regulation and how to speak with, like, if someone's a vulnerable client or all of this kind of stuff, but you never really go through your training and get told to teach people to watch exactly where the incentive lies and track it back, and then think, or you get marketed something, you feel an emotion go and you want to buy it, like a billboard of KFC and the smell of KFC. Like, why do they have that? Like, what is that for? You see Afterpay Day on a billboard, like...
That's 4 days.
Long weekend.
Yeah.
And, like, you kind of don't get trained to recognize that stuff or help people recognize that stuff. But it is really helpful to be able to, again, like, zoom out, look down on it, like, why am I getting told to buy this?
Yeah, or...
Is it actually valuable to me?
Even, where's all the education and the constant... Like, where's the media articles every week saying, hey, if you just pay off a bit extra off of your mortgage...
Those do pop up now and then, but...
Now and then, bro. They ain't every fucking day saying, like, it's the bottom of the market. You could get a rental. Oh, buy. Hey, this person made $64,000 million in property in 3 days. Like, oh, look at this capital gain on this property.
To be fair, a news agency reached out to me and asked me to do, like, a thing like that, and I was like, no, you can get fucked, you're all liars.
Oh, dear. Well, maybe we need to make some content. But I think, what I've been fascinated about recently is people will spend so much time learning about credit cards, like who's got the best fees on the investment platform, but won't go and like use a calculator to figure out, if I pay off, even I was running a calc the other day of paying off $10 more a fortnight off of your mortgage.
Yeah.
It's like saves 9 months of repayments over a 30-year loan.
Yeah, and like tens of thousands of dollars of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But instead we were like, nah, I'm gonna use the Amex Gold and Platinum Plus now.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, moving from that one because it's way better.
What's the story with credit card companies stopping air points? Because you know about this.
Yeah, I think KiwiBank have just pulled pin. But anyway, that's going to open a can of worms, man. The credit card cult will come for me, and I've had a tough time with them already, mate. So, I don't want to get 64 more DMs about how amazing it is. But no, my take on it is like, why spend so much time on a credit card cult as an individual instead of learning, you could get $400 back from the bank from using their cards. But you could also save $400,000 worth of interest or $40,000 or whatever. Like, why do we think so small? Why are these people encouraging us to think so small? Then we fall for it and we're like, oh, yeah, I'm winning now. Like, we got to think bigger. But also, what's happening, well, what I believe to be happening is that those rewards aren't going to be as financially viable, so they're slowly going to get stripped away. But I can guarantee you that people will still be like, no, I need the credit card for... when I go traveling, I get travel insurance, or there'll be another way that people will validate why they need it. But by the sounds of it, the rewards are decreasing and decreasing.
Have I spoken on the pod before about how loyalty systems and shit are designed so they can track your spending?
Let's do it as a separate pod.
Okay.
Because I reckon that will get so much backlash.
Fuck, I will get
you get cancelled.
Air New Zealand might stop my account, eh?
No, mate, they love you spending. Yeah. Maybe that's why they delay your flights all the time.
Yeah, true.
Anyway, we went live on Facebook with this one. Like the page if you haven't. There's 7,000 people there. Might try and go live every now and then, and might even do like the odd session where we say, hey, we're going to go live at 7 p.m, take some questions and do some things like that, trialing out the old technology in the background here. Thank you for those people who did tune in. But hey, property, it's still, I guess my whole take on property is that it is like the growth isn't there that I think a lot of people thought was going to be there in 2025. But the beautiful thing about an asset class that isn't increasing is that it gives a decrease of FOMO. So then, we maybe see some people staying in New Zealand that we're going to leave, but also encourages you to be more productive and to look at other ways to increase your income if you want to, and to not just rely solely on one thing to be your life raft.
I reckon the gains will be back, but it's going to be different now with the cost of running the show in terms of like rates and insurances and stuff like that. So like net yields are next on the chopping block, right? So anyway.
Right, be seeing you.